Simon Kohler is synonymous in the model railway industry. Unofficially titled Mr. Hornby, it is rare to not find him sporting his white shirt at an exhibition, greeting customers and sharing his wealth of knowledge with them. And with almost 50 years of service with Hornby, he has come from working at a model shop at the age of 21 to a director for one of the most iconic British brands today. When you consider that the company is celebrating its centenary year in 2020, then it is not a far reach to say Simon has dedicated his life to Hornby. Highs and lows have joined him along the way, but one constant has always been model railways. In this episode, Simon shares his Hornby memory.
I suppose where I lived in a small town called Louth in Lincolnshire, and in the market square there was a shop called Parker's, and it was a stationery downstairs, but upstairs they had a railway layout, a massive railway layout. That's where they used to sell Hornby 00. And I can remember going up there with my brother to have a look at this thing, and you know, coming from a family who couldn't really afford anything like that, it was just amazing. Yeah, so I think that's probably my first time. There was another time I remember with a chap called Leslie Cole, and he lived near the railway station in Louth, and I couldn't have been more than, I don't know, 9 maybe, and went to his house, and he actually had a triangle railway. And I remember sitting in their front room, and it was fairly sparse, with this train running round. And again, I thought it was absolutely fascinating. Yeah, but you know, that's probably my early age. Going back even further, Dad was alive, so probably when I was about 4 or 5, I can remember finding a tin plate Pullman car type train. Now I know now it's O gauge. I remember it was tin plate. Now whether it may have been my father's pre-war or whatever, but I do remember playing with it in the garden. I mean, nowadays that was probably heresy, you know, getting it all dirty and, you know, playing with it in the dirt and all the rest of it. But yeah, that's possibly my earliest date. Nobody's ever asked me that question before, but yeah, that's probably my earliest date. So 4, maybe 5. What do I love most? I mean, there's a list. First of all, love the people. I mean, there's no real demographic with people who are enthused or excited about model railways. You can have young children who are so excited when they see a train running round that they shake with real anticipation. And you know, I get a real kick out of that because, you know, they're passionate and what they're seeing will never ever leave them, you know, because what they're seeing is something big. You know, we're seeing something like that. They're seeing big, and it's exciting for them. I love going to the exhibitions, talking to the enthusiasts, talking to, you know, somebody who, you know, works in Switzerland trying to find a cure for cancer, and then the next minute I'm talking to a guy who's, you know, retired, probably, you know, worked for the council or whatever. And everybody's on the same level because they're all interested and passionate about model railways or toy trains. It depends, you see. You know, I've never really come to grips with when does it go from being a toy train to a model train. And I've always tried to figure that out. But yeah, I mean, so many different aspects, so many different people, and they all get a different kick out of model railways. So it's the people, it's certainly the product. You know, I love the product, and not just Hornby product. I love to see all model railway product, whether it's O gauge, tin plate, old, new, whatever. Hornby, and I do believe there are other makes as well. But I mean, looking at the other makes as well. So yeah, no, it's just the whole thing, the accessories. You know, people who go to the nth degree to produce an absolutely pucker scale model at a moment in time, to people who just plug the track together and watch the trains race by. So I get a big kick out of all of it, to be perfectly honest. It's a bit of a cheaty answer, but I do. I'm just fascinated by it all.
Simon began his model railway career at the age of 21, working in a local model shop. Turning his back on the dizzy heights of the taxi industry, it was his time in the shop, speaking to customers and learning about model railways, that shows just how important these independent shops are. With many stores being online, providing convenience and in some case ease of buying, many people may not consider visiting their local store. However, Hornby is dedicated to independent shops around the country. And why not? There's nothing quite like entering a model shop and viewing all the models on offer, talking all things model railways with the shop owner and even sampling the model itself in store. You can meet other modelers and discuss all things model railways. For many, these shops bring back the memory of staring through a shop window at a train set running with wonderment and excitement, or checking off what you wanted in the Hornby catalogue. And for others, the weekly trip to their local shop to browse the latest models provides a chance to speak with like-minded modelers and maybe even pick up a model or two. Yes, online is here to stay, but we want to show our support to all the independent retailers that switch on their lights, turn their signs to open, and continue to provide modelers with a warm welcome.
Always. Hornby has helped me, yeah, a lot. So, you're going to say how? Well, you're going to have to. This is you have a bit. You know, it's my life's been full of it. Really full of. You know, when I was a youngster, I worked in the excuse me, model shop. When I was went there as 21, I was there for about 7 years. Learned a lot about the industry. Learned a lot about people, how to talk to people. Prior to that, I'd worked for the Inland Revenue, etc. So I mean, if you can talk to people about income tax, you can talk to people about anything. But you know, I learned a lot about the industry, the history, etc. Good people. Nick Evans, who owns the model shop in Northampton, and we got on incredibly well. And he still runs the business, and I still talk to him. And then went to Hornby and Hamilton Morgan, and then on to Hornby. And really, and you know, it's helped me in so many ways. Rough times. I've seen the world, seen lots of countries, been to places. I mean, most of the places I go to, it tends to be exhibitions. So, you know, what I've seen are airports, roads to the hotel to the exhibition hall back to the hotel. So, you know, I'm an expert on exhibition halls and hotels, not an awful lot in between. But, you know, I've been all over the world, and it is, and still is, fascinating. Even with all the problems that there is with travel at the moment. I miss it. I miss that. I mean, we were scheduled to go to St. Louis this year in July, which obviously has been cancelled. Now that would have been another airport I would have seen, and another road to a hotel, another road to an exhibition. But you know, that's the way it is. But it's given me an awful lot. It's given me a lot of friends. It's given me real purpose in life. It's given me a lot of experiences, and it's seen me through good times and bad. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that answers your question, but it's quite an emotional question if I'm not careful. I suppose, I mean, pinpoint that the one thing that you hang your hat on, you think, yeah, really, really pleased with that. I think that would probably be live steam. I think that was a real milestone, not only in Hornby's history, but also in the people who put it together and working with those people, how we managed to keep the lid on it for probably about 18 months, how everything associated with it went together, how the product worked, and it did work. It was evolving, but it did work. I remember I had, and I've still got calluses to this day with burnt fingers and so on. But it was a fascinating period. The packaging was good. The promotion material was good. Everything came together. The launch, which we did at Goodwood, and we had the press there. Pete Waterman did the piece. We had a couple of people who were signed to him, and violins. I've forgotten their name, but I mean, they played live. I mean, the whole thing was dramatic, and nobody expected it. And I think, when I look at how it all came together, yeah, I think that is a real pinnacle. But there have been others as well, pretty close. But I think that's the one at the minute. Worst memory. Well, I'm not sure I have worst memories. What you have experiences, and probably one of the worst experiences. I hadn't been sort of with Hornby for very long. I'd been with Hammett Morgan 3 years, and I'd moved to Margate, moved to the offices. I'd become the brand manager for Hornby on the railway side, and in those days, and it was the very early 80s, we had what they called a Train X, and it was a special exhibition train, and it would go around various parts of the country, staying overnight or two days, whatever. And I'd visited it, this exhibition train, when I was working in retail, and it was fascinating, etc. Then, having worked for Hornby, and Hornby was going through an interesting time, because what was happening was the electronic games were coming in, and traditional products, traditional toys, roller skates, etc., were just falling out of favour in play, and people were getting more excited about the electronic games, Simon, etc. I choose that because I can remember that one. But it was we used to run it from October, but because of financial restraints, things were changing. We ran it later in the year, and I'm trying to remember. It would probably around about November time, I think. And anything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We were launching a product called 3DS, which was a space thing. Not many people remember it. It was one of those that some people would rather forget. But we chose the time when British Railways and the staff were threatening to go on strike, national strike. We chose a time when it was possibly the coldest winter for many, many years. And we chose a time when things were not necessarily going as well as we would hoped. So possibly the worst memory was several. One, where the train was parked up at Stowmarket. Now, we couldn't travel on the train. We had to go by car. So the road conditions were bad enough. And I remember we waiting at Stowmarket for this train to turn up. Eventually it did turn up, and I remember getting on board, and it was bitterly cold. And there's no heating on these exhibition trains as such, not while they're travelling. And all the exhibits, you can imagine, each coach had different exhibits, all the new items. And all these exhibits had frost on them. Absolutely, you know, people won't believe me. There was frost, and we had to get the heating going. But the oil in the system had frozen as well. So that all had to get melted. So that was, I remember we did that on more than one occasion. Then there was the occasion, of course, we're heading, the train was, I've forgotten what station it was going from, but it had to end up at Manchester Piccadilly. We got to, by car, we got to Manchester, but of course, that was when the British Railway staff decided they were going to go on strike. Everything was meant to come to a halt, everything. But we got a train somewhere, which is meant to be at Piccadilly. And, you know, I remember ringing up and asking somebody in authority, you know, could you tell me where our train is? And he was very helpful. He said, why don't you ask your 01, which was a computer controlled unit that we had at the time to control trains. It was the forerunner to DCC. And so that wasn't very helpful. But I remember him saying something along the lines of, wherever it is, it ain't moving. Which was very encouraging, because obviously we're going through a difficult time. We want orders. We've got to figure out what's going on. And it wasn't meant to be moving. Sometime after midnight, the train did pull in. Now, I've never figured out how on the British Railway network, where everything was meant to come to a dead stop, how this train continued. All I can think of is that maybe people were encouraged with maybe the odd glass of wine or whatever, you know. But it did turn up. But that was a moment we think, well, where is this train? You know, we're stuck. So that was possibly, you know, I'm new to the business. You know, I've recently separated from my wife. I'm thinking, you know, what am I doing? You know, could it get any worse? But luckily after that it started to improve.
The 1980s was a difficult time for so many people and companies. A severe global economic recession in the late 1970s and early 1980s affected most of the developed world. It was the deepest recession since the post-war period. Margaret Thatcher came to power in 1979, convinced that radical action was needed to reverse Britain's relative economic decline. Interest rates were raised in an attempt to tackle inflation, with the pound, already rising as a result of the UK's booming North Sea oil revenues, allowed to appreciate further on the foreign exchanges. Even so, the annual inflation rate rose to 20% in Thatcher's first year in office, and this, together with high borrowing costs and cheap imports, drove 20% of manufacturing to the wall. Hornby, like so many other companies, was hit hard by this recession. Combined with the popularity of computer games, people began to move away from hobbies, with children favouring new technologies. Notably, Hornby released a live steam rocket 3.5 gauge locomotive as part of the 1980 Rocket 150 celebrations. A major goal was to make real live steam accessible to an indoor domestic environment. The boiler was considerably smaller than the external diameter, surrounded by a thick insulating jacket to prevent burns. It was fueled by butane gas from cigarette lighter refills. To provide more torque for the small cylinders, gearing was adeptly hidden between the cranks and the wheels. The track was of asymmetric moulded plastic units representing the fish belly rails of the period. These could be assembled either way round to give either curved or straight track. In 1986, Hornby went public, and since then the company has endured several more recessions, and now in 2020 the company faces a global pandemic head on. However, in this crisis, the world has shown that hobbies can bring us together, and that they have an essential part to play in our everyday lives. Hornby are proud to be a part of that, and we look forward to the next 100 years.
Seeing that idea go through the whole process, and at the end of it, you know, selling, people wanting it, people buying it, and that gives you an awful boost. Really, it you know, makes it all worthwhile. So you know, it's given me, you know, it gives me an awful lot. It still does. You know, there's never been, I don't think I've ever had an occasion, even when there was a train missing, you know, should have been in Manchester Piccadilly. I don't think I've ever woken up in the morning and thought, I don't want to go to work, you know. And I think if ever that happened, that would be the time you hang up your controller and move on. But never ever, you know, love it, love the business, love the people. You know, I suppose it means an awful, it means the world, doesn't it? I mean, I've worked, I've been around sort of this industry officially since 1971. So that's a few years, and it's meant, you know, if it hadn't meant anything, then I wouldn't have done it for as long as I have. So it means a lot. I must admit, you know, my current wife has always said, you know, there's three people in this bed, herself, me, and Hornby, which I think is quite an amazing thing when you consider the number of people who work for Hornby, because the bed ain't that big. But, you know, it's always been a little bit of a balancing act. You know, is it the family? Is it Hornby? You know, Hornby supports the family, you know. So it's always been a little bit of a juggling game. But, you know, Hornby, to me, you know, it's a family. It's part of really what I do. So it means a huge, huge amount. And I'm very proud to be part of it.
Every story is unique, but one thing they all share is the love, the passion and happiness that model railways gives you. Life is made of memories. We carry them with us throughout our lives, and they shape the people we become, and they show others the people we once were. If you'd like to read more memories, you can download our accompanying Hornby Memories ebook by clicking the link below to download your copy. Thank you to Simon for sharing his Hornby memory. If you'd like to have your memory featured on screen or in our ebook, please email marketing@hornby.com with the subject title Hornby Memories. Thank you for watching, and we can't wait to hear your story.